I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight. Hopefully we'll be able to help some people, whether that are here or that watch it online. It's worked out really well for me, appealing through the Cook County Board of Review. And said, my name is Mike Glotz. I'm Village Trustee, and I want to introduce Kristin. She's our Village Clerk. She's going to take it from here for a little bit.
Thanks, everybody. First, I'd like to acknowledge a couple people in the audience. First of all, Mr. Lucas Howley. He's a residential analyst with the Cook County Board of Review. And I'd also like to thank Commissioner Dan Patlak for taking time out to come here and be with us today. We really appreciate it. He's the Commissioner of the Cook County Board of Review. I would also like to thank the law firm of Peterson, Johnson, and Murray for their pro bono assistance in putting this together and helping us with the presentation notes. And Chantal Perez, who's with us tonight on behalf of them.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Chantal Perez. Just kind of want to give you guys a little legal disclaimer, unfortunately, when it comes to any of these kind of informational seminars that we're going to be having today. And just wanted to explain to you that obviously the two individuals that are going to be presenting this information are not lawyers, and they are not giving you legal advice, but they are presenting a seminar on tax appeals. Furthermore, this is also just basically for informational purposes only. There is no attorney-client relationship that will be created with regards to this, as well as any legal advice. There's no legal advice being given. If you need legal advice, you definitely want to consult an attorney and definitely want to talk to them. And lastly, basically, that any use of this material that's contained in any of this presentation that you guys have received copies of, obviously, you take that information at your risk. That's why you would want to probably consult an attorney before that. And we expressly disclaim any liability for the use of this information. That will be helpful as well, though. So just wanted to kind of give you guys that information.
Can you speak up? We can't.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Did you hear me say it again? So there will be a legal disclaimer on there, as you can see right here. Sorry about that. Usually I'm the loudest one. I was just trying to explain that obviously there's no attorney-client relationship that's created here. This is definitely just for you guys to have as information, for you to kind of go forward to see what you guys want to do in terms of the tax appeal. But definitely, if you have other further questions, legal questions, you definitely want to consult an attorney of your own with this process, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Chantal. Well, apart from the actual mortgage, the second biggest expense for homeowners is usually property taxes. As 30 to 60% of taxable property is commonly overassessed, there's a good chance you're paying more than your fair share in property taxes. Today, Trustee Glotz and I will show you how to fight and reduce your property tax bill via the appeal process. We all feel the pain every few months as we write ever-increasing huge checks for school, village, and county taxes. Over the past year, however, Trustee Glotz and the residents he helped got some relief. According to GetRichSlowly.org, less than 5% of homeowners appeal their assessments. This is largely due to the seeming complexity of the process, or that residents are simply unaware of how much they can save. Admittedly, most financial tasks are less than enjoyable. In this case, however, the savings are, more often than not, well worth the time and effort spent. To appeal your property taxes, you need to do a little bit of sleuthing into your real estate assessment. Your investigation begins with the Cook County Assessor's Office and ends with the Cook County Board of Review. We'll begin with the Cook County Assessor's Office.
So part one, you go to www.cookcountyassessors.com. Then how to present your case for lack of uniformity. The first objective of your investigation is to find out if your home's assessed value is assessed at a higher rate per square foot than the similar buildings around you. you need to provide 3 or 4 comparables that are similar in size, type of construction, age, and just general condition that have a lower assessment per square foot than your property. Remember, you have to compare your property to similar properties located, 1, in your same neighborhood classification, which we'll go over in a little bit. Number 2, your property classification. And number 3, your age. Usually it's best to stay within 10 years. When the analysts go over them, they don't like having, when you use homes to compare that are 20, 30 years away, the closer you can stay to yours, the better. And if you could find comparables even within a block or 2, you're better off yet. Your success rate goes up the closer you stay to your house. If you can't find them within 2-block radius, you can still use comparables as long as they're still in the same neighborhood and have the same classification. So step 1, well, this is to find your comparables, will be go to interactive mapping. You see the red circle.
You go down from the drop-down menu to select it.
And then step 2, in the search field, you'll have to type in Tinley Park, Illinois. Hit go. And then at the bottom, you'll have to accept their disclaimer on it. Then you zoom in to Tinley Park, and you'll have to keep recentering it as you go because it'll move you all over the place. You'll end up in Western Springs, you'll be in McCook, you have to keep moving it to Tinley Park. And then step 5 is find your pins. This is, that the pointer?
Sure. I should mention that PIN stands for Property Identification Number.
Perfect examples, these are all your pins. So if you live at this house, your pin will be 2830-210-026. So then you do the math for it, you see where you're at, and then you can start comparing it to all your neighbors.
Is that all the figures, or just the first 4 figures, the last 4 figures? How do you find the similar pins? I mean,
It's not similar pins. Your similar properties, the classification. There'll be a slide. We'll go over that. But this is just a general picture of all the pins in your neighborhood if you live on Ravinia or Pine Point. Then step 1 to begin the appeal process, go to www.cookcountyassessor.com. Then at the drop-down box is search, go to property. Step 3, click on the property pin search. And this, everyone that's trying to write, just so you're aware, and Wilma, you don't have to tape it, this will be on YouTube as well. So if that will help you from note taking, this will also be on YouTube within a day or 2. Yes.
Are the addresses next to the PIN numbers on that, or you have to figure out
No,
what house?
we'll get through it, and then we'll have questions at the end. It'll be, hopefully it'll be self-explanatory as we go through it, and if it's not, we'll do questions at the end.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, no problem. So you do your property pin search, and then first you have to type in your PIN number. So let's just say that's your house, your PIN number. Then they have you type in this code to verify that you're a human, and then you hit search. This is what I was talking about, your property classification and your neighborhood code. If these 2 don't match other pins that you're comparing to, you cannot use them. The analyst will reject them. It has to be the same neighborhood code, same property classification code. And then, again, like I said, ensure that you try and get a property that's within 5 to 10 years of your comparables.
You said it has to be the same neighborhood code and what else?
Property classification.
Right here, property classification.
So those numbers aren't in the PIN though? Those are separated?
No, those are separate from the PIN.
When you type your PIN in, if we go back, type your PIN in there. When you type your PIN in, or you type your PIN in here, you hit search, then this is what pops up on your screen. There's more below it, but this is all right now that we're looking at. So this is what we're gonna do a demo run and show you exactly a live instead of footages. You know, besides the screen, we'll also do a dry live run. So what you're looking at is right here, your building assessed value. That's what you're comparing. You take your building assessed value, you divide it by your building per square foot, which is right here, this 1,200. Somehow the box dropped. This 1,200 is your building square footage. So you'll divide your building assessed value, which is 14,849, divided by 1,200 for your building square footage. And that means your home, you're paying $12.46 per square foot for this particular house. So example, I looked through the neighborhood, I found this PIN, this property, this building assessed value, which is $13,833, divided by the building square footage, which is 1,439, gives you a price of $9.61 per square foot. So this guy is paying almost $3 less per square foot. So that would be your best comparable, and it actually is. This is a house that I did for a friend of mine, and this was the #1 comparable. Example 2, here's another comparable. This is the second best comparable that I found. The building assessed value is $15,035. The building is $1,534 or square feet, which gave them a price of $9.80 per square foot. Example 3, sorry I don't have the red, it's not working. Example 3, the building assessed value for this property is $17,344 divided by 1,739 square foot, and that is the 1,739 is their building square footage, and that comes to $9.97. Step 8, from the cookcountyassessor.com to file your appeal, you go to the drop-down box for appeals. You hit File a Residential Appeal. Then again, you retype your PIN in there, and then the next set of numbers. Hit Search. Then the boxes you will click for Step 10, Lack of Uniformity and Overvaluation. And then, I don't have oh, there it's back. Right there will be a drop-down for your comparables. You'll hit that, and it'll open up all your comparables. And then you put in all the PIN numbers, comparable 1 being your best comparable, comparable 2 being your second best, and so on. And then after you do that, you're basically done. Last step is to enter your email address, hit Finish, and it's sent off to the assessor's office.
It's closed currently, is it, for the assessor's office?
The assessor's office is closed right now, correct?
So the only appeal that can be done is the Board of Review?
Yes, as of anyone that lives in Bremen, your appeal process is now over with Cook County Assessor's Office. Now your next step is the Cook County Board of Review, which personally, I'm a huge fan of the Cook County Board of Review. I'll give you a couple examples when I'm done.
Excuse me. How do you know that your appeal is received by the Board of Review?
When you put your email address in right here,
Right.
and you hit Finish,
Yeah.
they will send you an email back.
Confirming that?
Yes.
How fast? Pretty fast.
Yeah. I don't know if they're like Jimmy John's. I don't know if they're freaky fast. But yeah, but
Okay, so that's your confirmation?
yes. But what I also do after I hit finish, I print what's ever on the screen. So if it lists, because they'll give you a confirmation number and stuff, I usually print it.
Okay.
The reason I don't have a confirmation to show you because I can't appeal their taxes.
Yeah.
I stopped at this step and then we're done.
Thank you.
Yep. Now to the Cook County Board of Review, which this is the one that am I in the way for some of you? Okay. This is the one that I really like doing. I've had great success as some of you that are in here. I helped a lot of friends last year do their taxes, and through the board review, the best one I had, she just, luckily enough, she got $2,000 back. She was supposed to pay, her second installment was $2,800. They took $2,000 off, and she only owed $800. But then I had a couple friends though also. I mean, this is no guarantee. It could have been the way the analyst was looking at it. Could have been maybe the way I looked at it, and it didn't match with what they were looking for. I've had some that came back and didn't receive any. But 9 out of 10 times, I feel very confident with the Cook County Board of Review. If you find the right appeals and you do your job, the analysts at the Board of Review, I believe, do a great job at checking, your comparables. So,
Have you found any appeals that have been increased?
no, I'll let Commissioner Patlak answer that question.
No, never.
Okay, so you're going in with what you've got, and if you file the appeal, at least you have a chance of having it reduced, but never increased,
We
correct?
never increase.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Could you touch real quick, Commissioner Patlak, on, like this house, for example, I did an appeal, all the comparables. I've had some people ask me, does that hurt some of your neighbors that you're using for a comparable?
Did everyone hear what he said? Okay, so, no one should be concerned that anything they do will result, at the Board of Review, will result in an increased assessment for themselves or for their neighbors. So for instance, if you submit a comparable property to justify a reduction for your own home, and we look at that property and we say to ourselves, we think that one is under-assessed, we won't raise it. So don't worry about getting yourself in trouble or getting your neighbor in trouble.
Thank you. And that's why Dan's here. Part 2 is Cook County Board of Review. Cook County Board of Review is an independent, quasi-judicial elective office that reviews and educates property tax assessment appeals. And I am going to hand it over to the clerk.
Give you a little break. Okay. Property owners have the right to appeal the assessed valuation of their property if they believe it is overassessed. The board's mission is to ensure that property owners pay no more than their fair share of property taxes. There's no cost to appeal at the Board of Review. Mike, could I get the clicker from you? Thank you. Property owners may appeal their assessments twice within each tax year cycle. I was not aware of this until recently. Once with the Cook County Assessor's Office and once with the Board of Review. If you're appealing your own home, condominium, or mixed-use building, you may represent yourself or hire an attorney. There is no requirement to hire an attorney unless the property's title is held in the name of a corporation, LLC, or any other legal entity. The Board of Review consists of 3 commissioners who each represent one of the 3 districts within Cook County. When you file an appeal, analysts from each commissioner's office review your case. 2 out of 3 analysts must agree on a decision in order for you to receive a reduction. and we'll talk about beginning the appeal process momentarily.
Step one, go to www.cookcountyboardofreview.com. And step two, you will click to file your appeal. Step three, me personally, I've had great success. I've never logged in and registered myself. You probably should log in and register. I always hit submit appeal as a guest, but I am going to ask Commissioner Patlak to explain reasons you should.
Thanks, Mike. So, yeah, this is a new system we put in place about 2 years ago. We went from a completely paper-driven system to a digital system called the Digital Appeals Processing System. In any case, a lot of advantages to it. One of the big advantages is while you can appeal online as a guest, I recommend to everybody to file an appeal and register, create an account. Because when you create an account, that account is permanent. It's your account for your property. And so a couple of advantages. First of all, if you submit your appeal as a guest, that means that you go in, you file, you ask, you want to file an appeal. At that moment in time, if you want to submit evidence online, you can upload it to us, which is really convenient, right? However, once you finish doing that and you've withdrawn from the system, if you want to submit more evidence, you can't go back in and upload it to us. If you have more evidence, you would have to either deliver it by hand or mail it in, and you'll be doing it with paper, which we would subsequently scan and then put into your file, okay? If, however, you create your own account and you file your appeal, let's say tonight, and you don't even file any evidence at all, tomorrow or next week or 2 weeks from now, you can go back in, and of course you will have created a password. You have to remember your password. But you'll go back in and use your password to get to your file, and you can submit whatever evidence you want, whether it's comparables or an appraisal or plat a survey, or if you want to type in your story and give us the reason why you think that you're overassessed. And you can do that multiple times until finally, at some point in time, we actually have to send the data to an analyst and they'll start working it. Then several other advantages. When we get done adjudicating the appeal and we come up with a decision, we will send you an email. We will also send you a hard copy letter with our decision. If it's not a reduction, or if it's a reduction and maybe you see and you think it's too small, you're going to probably wonder, well, why did they come to that conclusion? Well, if you created an account, you can go into your account, you can see the evidence that you submitted. You can also see whatever evidence the analyst may have added to your file, and any notations the analyst may have made detailing why he came to the conclusion that he came to. So that way, you may disagree with us, but at least you'll know the reason why we did what we did. And then that remains where it's at. Next year comes along, if you decide you want to file an appeal again, you could review the old appeal. You could look at the comps that you used, you could look at the comps that the analyst used, and as you go along, sort of educate yourself as to what we're looking for. And that keeps on going indefinitely. And just so you know, you can file an appeal with a Cook County Assessor once every year, and you can file an appeal with the Board of Review once every year. Those two offices were mentioned earlier in the presentation. I do want to let you know that if you are unhappy with our decision at the Board of Review, there is another venue you can go to, actually two other venues. But you can only go to one or the other. You could file a further appeal with the Circuit Court of Cook County. If you do that, you should know that the Circuit Court of Cook County on tax appeals is backed up 4 years. But that's your prerogative if you want to go there. The other place to go is a state agency called the Property Tax Appeal Board, PTAB for short. Okay? That's where most residential property owners go who are unhappy with this decision of the Board of Review. and it doesn't cost anything to go there. In the letter you get from us informing you of our decision, we will mention that you can file an appeal at PTAB. And you can file that appeal by going to their website. It doesn't cost anything. My experience is they're pretty fair. What you should know about PTAB is if you have a commercial or industrial property, they also are behind 4 years. If you have a residential property, they're behind about 2 years, which means that by the time they come up with their decision, and if they rule in your favor and give you the number that you're looking for, you will have already paid the taxes on the assessment that you're appealing. So what will happen is you'll get their decision, you'll submit it to the Cook County Assessor's Office, you'll file what's called a certificate of error, and a few months later you get a refund for the amount that you paid over and above what you should have paid based on the PTAB decision. So anyways, that's my plea to go ahead and register. I really think it's by far the best way to do it.
This PTAB is a state entity?
PTAB is the state of Illinois, yes.
What department of the state is it?
It's, well, and they're their own department, Property Tax Appeal Board.
Okay.
So that's step 4, select your property over assessed value, and enter your property index PIN number. You go back one, Kristin.
Sure.
Right there it asks, are you a registered Board of Review attorney? And you can't, I don't know if you can see it, but unless you are, it's no. Then, next step is, do you wish to add associated PINs used to identify your property? No. Next step.
Mike?
Yes.
Some homes have 2 or 3 pins, so if you're one of the, most homes have 1 pin. There are a few homes that have 2 or even 3. So if you have 2 or 3, you put in your main pin, then any associated pin is a pin that's part of your property. If you have it, enter it.
There's a couple properties that actually that do have 2 pins that I've seen, and most people don't, but if you do, good for you. Means you have a very nice home. Next step, then in this box you have to also type in your whatever that box says.
Capture code.
Yeah, so that they know that you're human. Hit next. Then we already got that one. And then right here you enter your personal information and complete the process from your phone number, your email address.
You can request the opportunity to appear for a hearing if you choose. It's not necessary.
I would let Commissioner Patlak answer that one. I personally have never found a reason to. Maybe you could say advantages why people would appear.
For most people, especially those filing what's called the lack of uniformity appeal, which is what Mike has really been talking about mostly, there's really no need to come to the Board of Review for a hearing. I usually recommend it for people who have more complex cases, the type where you don't feel confident that written information that you would submit would be sufficient on its own without an oral explanation from you explaining exactly what the information means. So with that said, you have an absolute right to ask for an in-person hearing, and if you just check that box, we will eventually send you a letter, give you a time for the hearing. They're all held at 118 North Clark Street on the 6th floor in our office. You would need to come on that day and at that time when we set the hearing, and then you would have an opportunity to talk face-to-face to an analyst like Lucas, who would hear what you had to say, maybe ask you a few questions. They wouldn't give you a decision at that point because regardless of what their thoughts were, every appeal is reviewed by 3 analysts, 1 analyst representing each of the 3 commissioners at the Board of Review.
Thank you. Then the last step is, when did you purchase your property? That's a drop-down box. You hit wherever you fall in those parameters.
And then next.
And this is a situation I just ran into. Someone contacted me that lives in the 17600 block of Highland, and I could not find hardly any comparables for this woman. I looked and I looked and I looked, and there weren't many out there. So this is, if you live in some of these remote areas where you can't, this is the only way that I found that worked and at least gave me something to use for so that they could file an appeal. It's called neighborhood search. Step one, you go back to the Cook County Assessor's Office. You go to drop-down box search, hit property. Then right here, you'll see neighborhood watch or search. You hit neighborhood search, and then it'll ask you for what township you're in. It'll ask for your neighborhood code, and that goes back to that original sheet that we showed where it shows your neighborhood classification, your neighborhood code, your property. So you'll put in your neighborhood, then you'll put in your property class, which this one was 2-05.
Then click search, and the potential comparable properties are provided for you.
And this is what I have for one whole section. And this Highland, if some of you aren't familiar with it, is just east of Ridgeland Avenue. There isn't anything out there. There's 9 properties. And so I went through each one. I found her the best 3, and I gave her comparables and walked her step by step over the phone to file her appeal. Commissioner Patlak, is there anything else besides doing the neighborhood search for these remote areas that they can do?
No, I think that's the best one.
Okay.
Question.
Yes?
You're going to the board of review. Where do you get your properties to look at, to compare in the board of review? Or do you have to go back to the Cook County Assessor's Committee?
Yes, you have to go to the Cook County Assessor's Office to, to get your property PIN numbers to compare, and then you have to put them on the Cook County Board of Review website when you do your file. I don't exactly remember. I think there's one box. You type them in. You just type them all in together. It's not like the assessors, if I remember. There's not a drop-down box. You actually have you manually type them in and put them all in one box.
You can simply submit the PIN numbers to us if you would like to, or if you've gone to the assessor's website, the assessor's website will actually allow you to download their data. In other words, that page, and actually there's 2 pages, a page with the information and a page with a picture. You can download those to your computer, then you can upload them back to us when you file at our office. You know, I know not everybody here knows how to do that, but for those of you that do, it's a good way to do it. Mike?
Thank you.
Excuse me, what the Board of Review, do they have a base, how do they determine the baseline number for the assessment of the property?
The question from this gentleman is, how does the Board of Review determine the baseline property for the number, and the answer is we don't do that. We look at the evidence that's submitted by the appellant and the information we have at our disposal, and we make a determination. We don't look at any baseline
But I mean,
number.
even if you're not appealed, how do you reach your assessment number? You're assessed, right?
Everybody's property is assessed by the Cook County Assessor.
Correct.
So that's all done by the assessor. We're not privy to how he came to his decision. Yep.
Yes.
If you use the set of comparables, 6 comparables, just say on the assessors, you want to go to the board of review, would you use the same ones or could you use different?
I use the exact same ones. Perfect example is I did a couple homes in Northern Township. Last year, I did about almost 75 of them. And it was to the point I just couldn't do them anymore. I didn't have enough time. And someone called me, they were a friend. So luckily, I pulled up their information and it was a house that had the same property classification and neighborhood code that I've done for other homes. So I was luckily able to go into my file, pull out those comparables, and use those same comparables for that particular house.
So you're not required to use the same comparables. You're not required to appeal for the same reason. Everything you do at the Cook County Board of Review is new. It could be different than what you did at the Cook County Assessor. And by the way, if the assessor were to grant you a reduction, but you thought that reduction wasn't sufficient, you can come to us, and we're not going to say, oh, they already gave them a reduction, we're not going to look at this. We're going to look at the evidence that's available, and if we think that a further reduction is warranted, we're going to grant a further reduction. Or if they said no, we're not going to say, they said no, we're just going to go with what the assessor says. We're not bound by anything that they do. I do want to say, though, that while you can use the same comparables, I think there is a benefit to taking a second look. And the reason for that is lots of people appeal at the assessor's office. Some of them receive a reduction. Those reductions, when it's time to appeal at the Board of Review, those are new comps, lower than what anybody had when they originally appealed at the Cook County Assessor. So his appeal process creates new comps for all other remaining property owners. So I think it's worth it to take a look and see if maybe some of those houses got a reduction, and then right there, hey, there's a comp that justifies my request for a lower assessment.
One question on this subject. What if there simply is no comps on your home? As in, Mike knows my situation. I have a home that was built in 1886. To the story, there is no comps. Now I'm getting taxed as if I got a new two-story home, 2,900 square feet. The situation, I mean, what do I do with that? There are no comps.
If there are absolutely no comps, and that is very unique situation, that is a very unique situation, I would get an appraisal.
I was told that the tax appraisal is different than a residential appraisal. Line appraisal.
If you hire an appraiser to appraise your house, ask him to do a tax appraisal for you, I don't know that they're significantly different, honestly, but we'd rather have that. If you happen to have an appraisal sitting around the house from a refi, we'll look at that and consider it.
Why don't we just get through these couple slides, and then we'll answer them all at the end, because we're just about at the end, and some of your questions may be answered by itself.
These are the most frequently asked questions. Question number 1, what is needed to appeal? A completed board review complaint form, paper or online. I would highly encourage you to do it online. You're creating an extra password, but it's easy to I always misplace papers. It's good to have it all in one place. If you choose to file online, you must have an email address. You may include supporting evidence or documentation related to your method of appeal that you would like the board to consider. If no supporting evidence is submitted, Assessor's Office analysts will do a uniformity analysis for you. If you appeal online, evidence may be submitted electronically, uploaded.
Real quick to touch back on Commissioner Patlak, what he was saying about your comparables. I have a folder at home. I have every comparable I've done for probably the last 16 years. And sometimes the funny thing, and I date them. Remember my sheets? I date them all. I keep them all in order. And I've actually gone back and found comparables that I haven't been able to use for 6-7 years that now are back in the mix. So, I mean, it's important that you keep all this in a folder and don't lose it, because you never know.
Good point. And when do I need to submit my appeal? Appeals must be submitted before your township's filing deadline. Filing deadlines vary each year. Please refer to the board website for your township filing dates at cookcountyboardofreview.com. When will I receive notice of the board's decision? You will receive a notice approximately 8 weeks after your township closes, and that's pretty much the window that I experienced. Any reduction will be reflected on the second installment tax bill mailed in July. Do I need to attend a hearing? We've already sort of touched on this. No. However, taxpayers that appeal at the board have a right to a hearing. This option may be selected on the board appeal form. Taxpayers may waive the right to a hearing if they do not have any additional information to add to their appeal. All cases will be fully evaluated by Board of Review analysts, even if you do not attend a hearing.
So when is the closing for the appeal?
So the question was, when's the closing for the Board of Review? So the Board of Review opens groups of townships at one time for a 30-day period. And when that 30-day period expires, then the people that have property in those townships can no longer appeal at the Board of Review. We are going to open our first 9 townships on August 1st. The time to appeal those townships will expire on August 30th. None of them are Bremen, Rich, or Orland, which I believe is where everybody here lives. I believe that we'll probably be opening Bremen Township somewhere in the range of late August, early September, but we haven't established a date yet. You can check on that by going to our website and clicking on dates and deadlines, and we will, when we're ready to open it, we will print the townships that are open, the date they're open, and the last day that they'll close. We do allow, though, something called pre-filing. So even though right now we don't have a single township open, you can go to our website and you can pre-file regardless of where you live. So if you live in Bremen or Orland or Rich, you can pre-file, you can submit your evidence. Now I would suggest, though, that you don't submit your evidence, particularly if it is uniformity evidence, in other words, comparing your assessment to other homes' assessments, until your township has been finished being adjudicated by the assessor. Because as I mentioned before, when he finishes, he creates new comps. So my suggestion is, go in, file online, create that account, so you've got your place in line. You definitely won't miss your filing deadline because you've done it already. Then, when the assessor certifies that he's done, and you can check what he's done on his website, he also has a dates and deadlines portion of his website. When he shows that he's done with Bremen Township, then go look at the comps, pick out the ones you think are good, and submit them to us. As far as Rich and Orland, I expect them to open not for several months, but I don't know exactly when right now.
Yes?
I guess, is it possible what you were just saying, that you could put in that Tinley Park badge online and communicate it to everybody?
I'm sorry, you could what?
What he was just saying about the Bremen Township and so forth, can that be communicated to us with the Tinley Park badge? By you folks, and you get that for a village and go there.
We could certainly do it through the village.
We could
website.
put it on the, I can make sure that myself and Clerk Thirion, we could talk to our marketing department and ask them to put it on the village website historically, but that doesn't mean that's when it's gonna open. Bremen's usually been end of August, early September, is that correct, roughly?
It varies
Historically.
from year to year.
Okay.
So I don't like to promise
Okay.
any dates.
And Orland and Rich, I think they're going to be, for the assessors, is going to be sending out our reassessments in the next couple of days, I believe. So Board of Review for Orland Township and Rich is way down the line. So first in line will be Bremen.
Orland, they're mailing the reassessment notices July 28th.
Okay.
And Rich, they're scheduled for August 29th.
Rich is
Rich reassessment notices mailed August 29th.
August 29th for Rich, and then July 28th for Orland.
Yeah.
Is that reassessment or initial for Orland?
It's the reassessment notice,
Oh. For
the triennial reassessment
triennial.
notice.
Okay, yeah, we'd just like to get through these and then we'll take questions at the end. You're not required to do so, but we do have a podium here as an option, so it can be heard better by everyone. Where do I submit my appeal? Online, at the Board of Review website, or in person. At the office located at 118 North Clark, room 601. Will the Board of Review increase my assessment? No, the board does not increase assessments, or those of your neighbors. Do I need an attorney? No, there is no difference between filing on your own behalf or hiring an attorney. If you're incorporated entities, however, must use an attorney. To learn more about exemptions or apply for one, contact the Cook County Assessor's Office at this number or at cookcountyassessor.com. All right, before we take questions, we'd like to thank you for joining us today. We realize that this procedure may not result in savings for everyone at every classification, but we hope that the information that we presented here helps you and your family to attain a reduction. It's been our pleasure to assist you, and really, if any of you have any questions, always feel free to reach out to Trustee Glotz or me at our email address or at the Village phone number at 708-444-5000.
What percent of reductions do you normally experience year by year?
The question is, what percent of appeals receive a reduction at the Board of Review? And it varies from year to year. I used to be an analyst at the Board of Review, like Lucas. I started in 1999. So in 1999, that number, 54% of all the appeals received a reduction. That number has gone up and down. It's not a consistent number. I've seen it go as high in 2009, when I wasn't at the Board of Review, as an analyst or a commissioner, the number was 73% got a reduction. Last year, if my memory serves me correctly, it was about 62% that received a reduction. But we have no goals for granting reductions or doing no changes. We simply look at the evidence, and wherever that leads us, that's what we, that's our response.
Thank you.
Sure.
You can just keep it.
I do have one question. Is it better for people that live in a condo to go on their own or go as the home association?
The question is about condos. And first I should say that what you saw about comparable properties does not apply to condominiums. And I'll explain that in a moment. But a lot of people who live in condos think that they can't appeal on their own. That is not true. You can appeal as an individual condo owner. However, there are many condominium associations, they sort of group together, they hire an attorney, and he represents all the appeals. That's something you do at your option. Either one can work. And then as far as how we compute values in condos, I'll give you sort of the simple explanation. We look at a condo association, the building, the sales in that building. Based on the sales, we compute a value for the building. Then we take the percentage of ownership for any particular unit that has appealed, and we apply that percentage of ownership to the total building value, and that's the market value we'll put on that particular unit. Is that satisfactory?
Is that the same for townhomes?
It depends if you're in an association or not.
Okay.
If you are, it's different. If they're just all individual, we'll look at them as individual units. If they're the same, if they're in association, we'll look at all the sales there and try to come up with a value.
But if I were to do it on my own, how do I know on which way to look at it?
Well, if it's, for a townhouse, I would simply submit comparable properties. That would be my suggestion, okay? And if we have data at our office that we can look up. So, if you're a condo owner, you don't need to submit any data to us. You can if you want to, but we'll look up the sales data and we'll compute a number. If you want to submit something, you can, but you don't have to.
Well, my company do it individually, and I won't, so. Thanks so much.
Yes, Ms.
I did appeal, and I got a letter from the Cook County Board of Review saying that they were going to decrease it $746. And then when I got my taxes early July, the Cook County Assessor's Office says, no, you're not getting it.
Oh.
Okay.
So I got a letter saying I should get it, and then the day I should get it.
And you're sure both letters address, how do I look at it later rather than take up everybody's time?
Oh,
Okay?
okay.
Yeah.
Do they ever take into consideration a newly blighted neighborhood? Do you have like a check square, has your neighborhood recently been blighted?
No. I'm not going to say we don't take that consideration. but we don't have a checkbox for it.
Right.
If that's the situation, you should submit that.
Well, it's the whole neighbor, the whole village.
Well, that's fine, but I'm saying, you want to submit evidence showing that that representation has affected value and in what way it's affected the value.
Yes. Now, another thing, say if you live in a two-story and your comps are on a golf course or backed up to Fort Reserve, but yours is next to a blighted apartment, okay, got that way in the last few years. How would you bring that to the board and say, hey, look at what I live next to? I live next to a piece of crap apartment, and I'm getting taxed like if I live next to the Fort Reserve.
You could bring that up to us, but we need evidence establishing value, so you have to give us some evidence. Again, I would recommend in that case an appraisal. In that case, I would recommend an appraisal.
Okay, everyone, we're just going to interject here for a moment to show you something that I think will be very beneficial to you. We've already explained how to find, we've already discussed the steps about how to find comparables, and we're going to show you now how to go through those steps. So it'll sink in a little bit better. So Mike is going to walk me through it.
Okay, first, now to actually do the work. Grab yourself, like Mr. Doyle, a big pad of paper. I sit down with my pen and calculator, hit search, hit property. Give you a plug there, Jim. Yeah, first go to your pin search. And then you have the mapping on the other one, right?
Right.
Okay. So that's where you'll enter your pin, and we use that house for an example. We're just going to pick one.
Quick question, if you have 2 pins, do you have to do this for both pins? And can you use the same properties?
No.
No, why?
You don't have to.
There's 2 questions.
You want to find out the data that's associated with both pins. I assume the pins are adjoining for one building usually, in most cases. So, you want to find out what your total assessment is, what the total square footage is. But I think this is basically just to get the information about your building. What's the class, what's the neighborhood, what's the square footage. Then you make sure that you compare that information to other homes that have the exact same information about them.
Correct. So then we'll hit search. That didn't work out so well. It's probably the Wi-Fi. Okay, so this house on Ravinia, sorry, the Wi-Fi is acting up. It keeps jumping. So the house, once it catches up, let's just say this is your house, your property class was 203 and 170. So if you live you have that class and that neighborhood code, you can only compare to that. So like we talked about before, you'll take your assessed value for your building and then divide it by your square footage. You want to go to the other one?
Sure.
And this is how you find them all with the Jim Doyle notepad. So go back to property details. So what you'll do now is you'll go to search. You'll go to interactive mapping at the bottom. And type in, you don't have to do that. You'll type to Tinley Park and hit go, jump over to the other slide. We're already there. And then you'll zoom in. So unfortunately the Wi-Fi is having trouble catching up. All these
I'll try again. That's okay.
just pin. You'll go on this page, and you'll find where your pin is if you live on Glenview Drive, and you'll just compare them to all your neighbors.
On that previous screen, it was prompting you for an address, but if you just typed in Tinley Park, that was sufficient.
Just Tinley Park, Illinois. That's all you have to do. You gotta keep going that way. You gotta go east. There you go. Can you go east again? Keep going. Okay, now go south. No. South. There you go. West a little. The other way. There you go. Zoom in. Sorry, the Wi-Fi's acting up a little bit. Come on, numbers. All right, you want to go back to the slide, that picture we have with all the pins? All right, there you go. Can you make that bigger, or is that it? Okay, there you go. So if this is your pin, you know, you look, we don't have the whole map. Let's just say it goes all the way up to, in your area, it goes up to, say, 50 homes. So you're reversed back to that one screen where it had your, where you typed your pin in. So if you started out at 26 and you know it goes all the way up to 50, I'll start at 001 instead of 026. And I'll do every house all the way to 50 to get every home that is in the 2830210. I'll do all 50 of them. And if you don't find the comparables you're happy with, then I jump across the street. These homes are 2830200. Let's just say there's 50 in here. I'll do the same process with those 50. I'll do the, you know, you look at their building assessed value and you divide it by their building square foot, or their assessed value, or their square footage, and then that'll give you the building square foot on what they're paying on that that one page. Oh, it's time consuming, but it's well worth it once you zoom in for your area. Like if you're a Ravinia, I would check all the homes from Pine Point, and I don't know what streets above it. That would probably be a good radius, right, Commissioner Patlak? That'll give you everyone on your block, give you the block behind you and the block above you.
Yeah, I mean, in your search, I would start with the homes that are closest. If those don't give you good comparables that justify a reduction, then I would go out in larger and larger concentric circles until you find some homes that do justify a reduction, or until you find out that you're fairly assessed. Then you can, you know, stop your search.
I did a home by Pine Point and Elm, and I was lucky enough, and probably within 10 minutes, I found 6 comparables that were $4 to $5 less per square foot. And so I started searching a little more, and the more I searched, the numbers were going up, so I called it a day, and that was it. And I was lucky enough, I had 2 other homes in that same area, actually, that were on Elm Lane, that I was able to use for that same home. So like if you have a neighbor, say, like Jim, you do yours, and your neighbor has the exact same house, tell your neighbor, you know, it'd make it a lot easier for them. You guys can work together or network on it. It's time consuming, but it's real simple. All you have to do is take your, you know, the assessor's building assessed value and divide it by your square footage, and that gives you your price per square foot. Yes?
Isn't there a way that you can get just all the houses on that street with the assessed value and the square footage on one page versus going through this? Because I remember seeing it last year when I did mine.
Not that I'm aware of. I've hit, when you hit neighborhood search, like if you go in neighborhood search and you ask for the same property classification and code, I did it for my house, I had 10 pages of them. So, I mean, there's like 150 houses. I'm not gonna do that. I'd rather just work around my house, and if I don't find something that I think is comparable, then I start spreading that out, that search out a little bit.
Like in the very back.
Mike, I have a question. Say for instance, you have a trial, and if you're going through these and everybody else, has ranches or stuff, you have to look at that one though, because they're gonna have less footage.
It won't have the same property classification. You'll have the same neighborhood code, you won't have the same property classification. Yeah,
It happened to me, I only had one other comparable.
yeah. I spent a ton of time on Kristin's, and yeah, there's just none in her area. That's, I'll look at it, Karen, for you, but I bet where you live, there's gotta be some around there. You may have to search a block to the north, a block to the south, or, yeah. Yes.
On the neighborhood search, instead of doing the interactive, when I did it, I had like 25 pages. But that's okay, that's still in my neighborhood, to look for different assessments, right?
Yes, but it doesn't tell you where they're, if they're right next to you. It just lists 25 pages of them.
But I'm still going and looking for my square footage of the house though, right? I mean,
It'll give you the same property classification and neighborhood code, yes. But when you look at it, you could have a house that's a mile away.
that's what I'm asking.
Yeah.
That's okay though, because.
Yes, but they prefer you start within 1 to 2 blocks, and if there's nothing in it, because if you don't, their analysts will find it, and then, like Commissioner Patlak said, they'll send it back to you. Sorry, we found stuff that was closer, and we used this. Like I found houses that were a mile from mine. I sent them in as bottom comparables just to put them in there, just in case they like those. I mean, I've turned in 6 before.
Well, I did it too, and I did get in my assessment down, but I couldn't find houses because I had it on mine, the same building size, so I had some Barbara Avenue, which is quite a way.
Yep, but they're well aware of that. When their analysts punch it in, they pull up all of your comparables. They know where you live. Yeah.
Patlak said, being in a condo or a townhome, we don't have to look up the pins for comparables ourselves, that they would do it. But I'm curious, what do you use? What do you look for? When I am in a condo, what kind of comparables would I look for if I wanted to file an appeal for? We have 2 buildings with 3 units each in them, and we've always filed together. I'd like to do it that way again for us. What would we look for comparables for our townhomes? And how would we find those?
You can look up townhome information just the way that Mike explained. It's the condos where we have apartment type units where we
have both in the building, but I think they're called condos, even though some are 2 stories with a basement. There's 1 unit in each building that's 1 floor with no basement and only 1 floor.
Let me put you in touch with a person who works for me,
Okay.
who does condos.
Okay.
And I'll let you talk to him on the phone.
Thank
He can
you.
probably give you a good explanation,
I
okay?
appreciate
So
that.
before you leave, come and see me. I'll give you my card and we'll work it out, okay?
Thank you very much.
Okay. Yes.
I went ahead and I did mine. One thing that I noticed is that I live in Bear Brothers subdivision. A lot of the houses similar, but the houses that were across the street or on the side or down the street, they have not disputed their taxes ever. So when you look at mine, and you use that as a comparable, they're not disputing it, but yet 3 blocks over, the same exact house, they've disputed it, and they've gotten reductions. So how would you look at that? I mean, if you pull up my house, you'll see the identical houses and say, oh, no. But 3 blocks away, not even 3 blocks away, same identical house, everything. They are disputing theirs, and they
So the question is that in the very close vicinity of this lady's home, there are homes like hers. Their assessments are high. She believes because they've never filed an appeal and gotten the reductions they might otherwise have gotten. While there are homes like hers several blocks away, they've filed an appeal in the past. They've gotten a lower assessment. All I can tell you is we will give more weight to those comparable properties that are closer as opposed to those that are farther away. So in a case like that, we may determine that your house is fairly assessed based on those houses that are like yours that are close to you.
But if I show proof that they have not, because you can see it whether they've
Yeah,
disputed.
we don't take into consideration whether or not someone has appealed in the past. It's neither here nor there. We look at what the assessment is, what the current assessment is, to determine uniformity. If you think that the market value placed on your home is incorrect, Jim Doyle is not here anymore, but he was asking about that. His question was, well, you look in a neighborhood and all the houses are assessed about the same, but they're all assessed too high. They're uniformly too high. Well, if that's the case, then what you could do is file a market value appeal at the Board of Review. And the evidence you would give us is either an appraisal or go to your local realtor, get some comparable properties, houses like yours in your neighborhood that are like your home, that have sold for less than what the assessor says they're worth, and submit those as your appeal. So that is a market value appeal as opposed to a uniformity appeal.
Does a corner house make a difference?
A corner house doesn't make a difference.
For your land, it will. Not for, not for your assessed
The
building.
neighbors, their backyards are deep to where mine's all in the front.
Yeah, my neighbor pays a lot more than me because we have the exact same house, but she's a corner. She has more land to pay for. Yes, Renee?
My next door neighbor has a house that's a, three-step ranch. And my understanding is that the footprint of the house, taking up more of the land, that would be a higher tax rate. Now, I've got a tri-level, and I have about half of the square footage that my neighbor has, yet their taxes are a heck of a lot lower. How is that?
The
Why
taxes
is that?
itself or the land,
The tax bill is a lot lower than mine.
it could be based on, you may be paying more because of the building. The land, correct me if I'm wrong, is a square footage formula that I believe they use, and you may have more land.
No, same lot
Are you
size.
saying this is exact?
That's the question you'd have to call the assessors for.
Are you saying that the tax bill itself, not the assessment, the tax bill itself is lower?
Yes.
Okay, it's possible that they could have some kind of senior exemption or something like that? No?
No.
No exemption at all?
Nope.
Yes?
I have a question, doesn't pertain to any of this. I had done an appeal and I had actually gotten a reduction. Well, they sent me a letter in the mail. Here's the thing, I misplaced the letter. How do I get a copy of the letter? As good as my files are, do you believe I cannot find the letter?
Yeah, I would, if you call them, give them your address, maybe they could re-email it to you or send you a new one.
And then after, and now I don't remember, it's been like 6 months ago. When would I see that, the reflection on my tax bill, a reduction?
That is if
Any reduction you receive from the assessor or the Board of Review early in 2017 or in 2016, that reduction would be reflected on your second installment 2016 bill, the one that you just received on July 1st and is due to be paid on August 1st. So that new assessment, they gave you a reduction, it was a new number, that should be on your bill, the assessment number. Keep in mind though, you could get a reduction in your assessment. It doesn't guarantee that your tax bill will go down. It simply means that your taxes perhaps won't be as high as they otherwise would have been had you had that higher number. So reduction in assessment doesn't always result in lower tax bill from the previous years. Sometimes it does, sometimes it does not.
At the beginning of the year, they usually take, I think 55%. You pay on your first installment,
55% of the previous year's total taxes, but that, you don't know what your new year's taxes are gonna be, so you don't, that doesn't mean that the second half bill is 45% of the total. It doesn't work that way.
Exactly, and then they don't know what it'll be until you guys, the Board of Review and the assessors do their appeal.
Well, if I look through the bill I'm gonna pay tomorrow, I have it with me. Is there a way for me to tell if there's been a reduction on there?
It doesn't say if there's been a reduction, but it'll say what your assessed value is. And so if that number matches the number that was mailed to you with a letter, that shows that that reflects the reduction. I don't know if you have that memorized, but if you have a record of what it used to be, and it's a different lower number, then that shows you got a
Well, I have
reduction.
my own bills, I mean, I have all my tax bills.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
If I just moved in, when do I start my appeal process? Because obviously I haven't paid the 2016 from the previous owner.
You just moved in, that's again Commissioner Patlak.
Well, the appeal, any appeals for your 2016 bill have long since expired. Your future appeal would be for the 2017 bill that you will get in 2018. If you live in Bremen Township, as I said earlier, I believe we will be opening late August, early September. If you live in Orland or Rich, it'll be several months from then.
Hey, whenever we open up the Bremen Township, I can let you know.
Okay.
So instead of having you call.
Yep, and then I'll have them put it on the website.
Yeah, or you know, on social media also too. So
Great.
know about it.
Okay, thanks, Lucas. Yes, Karen?
Question about the square footage in the basement, is that considered livable space? Only
I didn't
because
hear.
I have a.
Can you stand up? Can you stand up, Karen, so Commissioner Patlak can hear you?
Is the basement square footage considered living space towards the whole, footage? Because I have an unfinished basement and I'm fine with that, got it on the website as partially finished. It's not, and I went to one of the bridge people.
So as far as computing what we call living square footage of a home, this is how it's computed. It's a measurement, it's the outside dimensions of the home, so that means it includes everything inside the home, the walls, the hallways, the closets, the bathrooms, and all the regular rooms, but with these exceptions. Does not include a basement, even if the basement is finished, even if it has a bedroom and a bathroom, basement is not considered part of living square footage. Does not include an attached garage, does not include a unfinished, unheated attic, does not include a 3-season room, you know, the kind of room that's built onto the back of the house. You use it in the spring, summer, and fall, but it's not heated. Does not include the second story of a 2-story foyer. What am I missing, anything? And if you live in a bi-level style home, the kind where you enter sort of on ground level, but then you go down 5 steps and you're in what people normally call their lower level family room. Lower level family room not counted as living square footage. With that said, that doesn't mean that having a basement doesn't add value to your home. It does add value, however, it's not considered to be part of the living square footage.
Well, what they're in, because why is it always listed on there? I mean, it doesn't list, I don't think it lists the bathrooms and all that, but for some reason, it's got the basement partially finished, and I can't get it to remove it.
Yeah, you know, if you have an issue with the description of the property, you do, all the records of the property are kept by the Cook County Assessor. So if you think that their description of it being partially finished is incorrect, you need to bring them evidence that in fact it's totally unfinished. Photographs, if you have an appraisal that shows what it is, if you can get affidavit from an architect that looked at it, something you have to convince them.
But if it doesn't apply to it, because I was worried about tax wise and it's unfinished, I guess I'm not worried.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to you. I mean, I would want to get my record straight, but, my guess would be that being partially finished does add more value to your home as opposed to being unfinished. I don't know how much though.
I don't mind if it's the value of the house. Okay, thanks.
Another quick thing I wanted to add, Wilma sitting in the beautiful branding shirt. I helped her do hers as well, and she received 22% off just doing those simple steps. You know, zoom in, get your boxes, get your pad of paper, have your calculator ready, and do the math. It's really simple. Shouldn't take you more than maybe an hour and a half on a Saturday, and you'll be happy in 3 months when they send you that letter.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I just have a question going back to the condo. I live in a 12-unit building with 9 buildings and 12 units in each building. I don't think they are going to appeal. I think they have appealed at one time. And if I appeal my own, which I would like to do, you said I don't need comps, or I can't get the other building. Well, you know what somebody else pays in the building? Are they? Is there a guarantee we're all paying the exact same, or we're all just have the same?
There's no guarantees.
No, but I mean.
You can submit any evidence that you think is germane to your case. However, in the case of a condo, we don't really need you to submit anything. We can figure it out on our own. But I mean, if you want to submit something, we'll look at it.
But I don't know what my neighbors, all might be, what their square footage price comes out. I don't know. I mean, I would have no idea. So I can just submit it without anything, with an explanation of why, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
My question is, it says you don't need an attorney unless the property is in a corporation, an LLC, or other legal entity. Is a trust considered legal?
No, a trust, you know, I assume that you, your husband, is the beneficiary of the trust, and you can file an appeal for that property without the help of an attorney.
Thank you.
Yes, Renee.
Last year, I submitted my appeal my neighbor, I gave the paperwork to my neighbor. We have almost identical houses, very, very similar. It came back that her reduction was a heck of a lot larger than mine. Why would that be?
It is possible that two different sets of analysts looked at it and came to different conclusions. But offhand, I couldn't possibly tell you. I don't know anything about your case, and I'm not looking at the file right now. But my guess is that different analysts looked at it, they came to a different conclusion. We're not. Our analysis is not always exactly uniform.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
On the process, so I should file with the
Always go through the assessors first, and then regardless of what they send you, whether you get a reduction or not, then go through the Commissioner Patlak's office, the Board of Review.
But if you missed your chance to go to the assessor, that does not preclude you from coming to the Board of Review. You can still come to us. However, in order to file at the Property Tax Appeal Board, you must first have appealed at the Board of Review. If you go to them without going to us, they won't accept your appeal.
You said
Yes.
this will be on YouTube? Will it be under a certain title?
Yeah, it'll be right on the
Television?
yeah, Tinley Television. You can just go and you Google Tinley Park Television, and it'll pull up some of the YouTube videos. Anyone else? Hi, Brad. Well, just want to tell you thank you. Chris and I appreciate you guys coming out, and Commissioner Patlak, I thank you for coming. Couldn't have did it without you. Appreciate all your help.